This channel's real, this channel's about documenting, this channel's about talking, having an open opinion. And let's get started. Say whoa, say whoa. Say whoa. Head of a horse, the body of a man. Unidentified flying object. Welcome back to another video.
Okay, so boom. Y'all heard about not falling asleep in front of mirrors, right? Because if you haven't, let me tell you why you shouldn't. It was this girl named Lena, and of course she had a mirror in front of her bed and she fell asleep in front of it. And when she fell asleep, she unfortunately started having sleep paralysis. Now, fortunately, she did wake up out of it, or at least she thought, because when she woke up and she sat up in front of her mirror, she was moving, but her reflection wasn't. And then all of a sudden, her reflection, she started seeing this shadowy figure start walking up behind her. Now, of course, she freaked out and she turned to try and look at it, and there's nothing there. But when she turned back into the mirror, this shadowy figure is getting closer and closer until it touches her. And she turns again, but there's nothing there, but she feels it and she sees it in the mirror. And once it touches her, her reflection finally does move, and the only movement it does is this creepy smile. So at that point, she freaked out. So of course, she did the only thing she could do. She started praying. And as she started praying, this shadowy figure started making this gurgling, growling sound. And she started praying harder because she realized at that point that it must be making this thing mad, so it must be working. And all of a sudden, her father gets burst into the room. And the only reason he burst into the room is because he was having a dream himself. And in his dream, he was in the woods, and he all of a sudden started hearing his daughter's name, or start hearing him call for him and saying, "Dad, help me, help me." So he burst into the room, and it turns out she wasn't even in her bed. She was actually standing right in front of the mirror like she was in some trance, just staring at her reflection, not doing nothing. And he was able to shake her up out of it. And he brought her to his bedroom with the mama and woke her up, and they started praying. But child, she ain't never sleep in front of that mirror again. And that's why you shouldn't either, because you never know what portal you may open or what may happen.
Alright guys, it's me, Do Not Obey, and let's jump into the video. More research on why I don't do mirrors. Hope you guys enjoy. Do not obey. Stay woke. Peace.
Never sleep with a mirror facing you. And I mean never. That was dramatic. But all realness, you're never supposed to sleep with a mirror facing you in your bed. So let's get into it. It is very known that mirrors have ties with the spiritual realm, because mirrors pick up so much energy. And when we're sleeping, our souls can sometimes leave our bodies, which is also known as astral projecting. And sometimes when our soul sees its own reflection, it can get scared, and that's where the nightmares and the sleepless nights and always waking up in the middle of the night can come in. Y'all might think this is like crazy, but this is actually very true. And you gotta realize when you're sleeping, you're more vulnerable because you're resting. You're not aware, and that is how souls and spirits can attach themselves to you. And y'all all know spirits like to latch on to things that are vulnerable. It's also a fact that you're not supposed to sleep with the mirror facing the door. Now, I'm not saying that just because your mirror is facing you in your sleep that things are going to happen. That's not always the case, but there's a lot of people that astral project and don't know that they're astral projecting. If y'all watched Insidious, it breaks it down about that. Astral projecting is basically when the spirit can cross over to different dimensions and realms, and you might not even know it. You might just think you're dreaming, but in reality, you're in a whole other realm. And it can get deeper and deeper the more you sleep and the more you experience these things. And you might get stuck there or bring something back that you didn't even know that you brought because you thought that you were dreaming. Some even say that if you put two mirrors facing each other, it can create a portal, and you do not want to do that. But portals are not just in mirrors. They're in our TVs, our laptops, our smartphones, anything like that. But ways to avoid this is by putting like a dark sheet over it or just simply moving it out the way. But like I said, portals aren't just in your mirror, so you might need to do something about that TV or something when you go to sleep. But I mean, it's common for you to have your TV facing you in your bed or your mirror facing you in a not so awkward position in your room, right? So that's why it's important, like, to cover it up when you're sleeping. But I never slept with a mirror facing me, So I never really experienced anything like that. I'm not really a big dreamer as well. But if y'all got a mirror in y'all room that's facing you in your bed, or like your TV is like right in front of you, and you just start noticing a lot of weird things, it might be because you don't let some spirits in from another realm.
Hence why I don't play with mirrors. Hence why I talk about how people come into your dreams. See, the TV does face me, and I have two. You know, when I sleep in my bed, I have a gaming TV. So look, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Okay.
If you sleep in front of a mirror, I feel like you're just asking to be haunted by a ghost. My cousin, and we'll name her Reagan for privacy, was around 15-16 years old when she moved into her new house, and was also given her own room for the first time. So not only was she finally free from sleeping in the same room as her sister, but she could decorate her room now however she wanted. Reagan said in the process of decorating her room, she decided to prop her full body mirror right at the end of her bed. Thinking that this was the best idea of her life, she said she quickly realized why it wasn't, and she ended up moving that mirror somewhere else a few days later. Reagan said the night that she propped her mirror up, she fell asleep earlier than usual. This caused her to wake up late, like around 3:30 a.m., where she shot up from her bed, only to be staring right at her own reflection of herself. Reagan said right off the bat this threw her off so much because in her previous house, there was no mirror facing the bed, and waking up, sitting up, and instantly seeing yourself right in front of you is kinda eerie. Anyways, Reagan said as she was staring at herself, she noticed something strange. A dark silhouette appeared at the edge of the mirror. So as she's looking at herself, the figure is like right beside her, but like a little far back. She said it was tall, thin, and half hidden. She said she instantly got chills and she felt it run down her spine. But she did not want her nerves to get the best of her. Reagan said despite hearing stories about demons and dark entities, she felt a bit curious and decided to whisper a greeting to the figure that was right beside her. Frozen in place and only looking at herself and the figure that's in the mirror, she said the figure remained silent and still. But she still felt as if a connection was forming between her and whatever entity that was. Reagan said to keep the peace, she began to converse with it even though she was the only one that was speaking. She told me she decided to name this figure Murphy, and for the next few days, a routine began to happen. Every night at around 3 a.m., Reagan would wake up again and again, sitting up from her bed to look in the mirror to see the figure standing there. She would talk to it or even tell Murphy goodnight as a farewell. Now keep in mind, no one in her family knew that this was happening. Fast forward, one night, something changed. She said she woke up at the regular time, 3 o'clock, and when she sat up and faced the mirror, there was nothing there. As she sat in her room silently, she said that she remembers hearing her mini printer go off. She quickly turned her head to where the printer was, got up, and turned it off. And this whole time she was thinking to herself how weird it was because with the printer, you have to like physically turn it on. You know, it's not just like something that you control from like your phone or anything. As she walked back to her bed, the printer turned on again, but this time it sounded like it was breaking down. She told me she said out loud, "Murphy, that wasn't funny." And again, she walked back to her bed. She sat down, faced the mirror in hopes of seeing the figure or Murphy, but what she saw was insane. Reagan said there was a figure standing there, but it wasn't the same figure that she was seeing from before. This figure had the silhouette of a lady with long hair and a ripped dress. She remembers as she was looking at this figure, she felt a tear drop from her face even though she didn't have the urge to cry. She also remembers in this moment she couldn't move. It was almost as if the figure was controlling her. Reagan said as she stared at herself and the figure in the mirror, she noticed that the figure started to move. This figure, the lady, she started to sway back and forth, and she slowly started to creep behind my cousin Reagan. She told me with each step that the figure took, the room got colder. She could feel vibrations surrounding her. At one point, she even tried to speak, but her mouth would not move. She was quite literally stuck in place, and Reagan said when the figure was about this close to her, she heard a faint whisper but couldn't make out what was being said. She watched as the figure lifted its hand and noticed that it was kind of holding something like a knife. As this entity, spirit, or whatever it was standing over Reagan, towering over her from behind, she was finally able to let out a blood-curdling scream. This alerted her parents, and she remembers her mom bursting through the door. Her mom turned on the light, and in that moment, Reagan said that she was sobbing her eyes out. While her mom was comforting her, she did ask what happened, and of course, Reagan didn't say exactly what happened, but Reagan said she actually threw out the mirror, got a new one, but placed this mirror farther away from her bed. Also, upon further research, she found out a lady in her hometown years ago, I'm talking years, was murdered on her wedding day, and she believes that's who she saw. Reagan said she's still shaken at the fact that she invited something like that into her life, into her room, and she even still has dreams about it. Now, whenever she goes to someone's house and she sees that they have a mirror facing their bed, she always tells them this story in hopes.
One of the first things I tell clients if they tell me they're having interrupted sleep or trouble falling asleep is to make sure they don't have any mirrors facing them, because mirrors when we sleep can become portals to other realms, especially if they are facing you and you are very energetically sensitive. They're basically reflecting that openness that happens in your own energy field and making it like a beacon of light for literally anything and any entity to come close to you while you're sleeping.
Me and my sister shared a big queen-size bed. On one side of the bed there was a mirror, and on the other side there wasn't. We took turns sleeping on each side because the charger for my phone was on the side with the mirror. The first night I slept on the side with the mirror, I had some really bad dreams. I woke up feeling scared and paranoid, thinking about things like the white lady outside my window. I couldn't shake the fear and it felt really unsettling. The next night I slept on the side without the mirror and it was completely different. I felt calm and peaceful and I didn't have any bad dreams. But on the third or second to last night, I had to sleep in front of the mirror again because of the phone charger. That night, I started feeling sick. I got stomach problems and just didn't feel right. I couldn't sleep properly and kept tossing and turning. It made me wonder if the mirror was somehow causing all the bad feelings and making me sick. I felt a lot more comfortable when I wasn't sleeping near it. I didn't want to sleep by the mirror again after that.